This podcast is sponsored by Legacy Foods. You can find out about their food storage products at buyemergencyfoods.com and preparewise.com. As we have seen in recent weeks, events in the world can change quickly, and these sort of changes can really cause a lot of stress if you're not prepared. These are the sort of things of why we prep. We want to take care of our family no matter what. Having a good food storage program is right up there at the top of your preparedness priorities. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until the nearly last minute when you make an order and it may not show up in time because the shipping lanes or the delivery trucks have shut down. You want to make sure you have this stuff ahead of time, before time. Prepare now. I urge you to go to either preparewise.com or buyemergencyfoods.com and check out the food storage products that they have. I think you're going to like them. And when you're ready to buy, if you call in your order at 888-545-6265 and you mention that you heard about them from the Preparedness podcast, you're going to get 5% off your entire order. So don't be caught unprepared. Get your food storage today. Buyemergencyfoods.com. Howdy, folks. Rob Hannes here for the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast that brings you the best in preparedness information. We are here in sunny Arizona, and we are going to be talking about nukes, EMP, North Korea, and false flags on this podcast. Before we start, I've got a couple announcements, though. There are a couple prepper expos coming up. One is in Scottsdale, Arizona, and that is April 26th through the 28th. You can find more information about that by going to prepperfestaz.com. I will be at this Prepper Expo. I'm going to have a table there. I'm also giving a class on EMP. The other Preparedness Expo is in Bakersfield, California. That is on June 8th and June 9th. I will also have a table there, and I will be giving another class on EMP. This one's going to be a deeper breakout session. I think it's scheduled for 1 or 2 hours yet. I don't remember exactly which, but it should be a good event. I'm looking forward to going to both of these. Speaking of EMP, the EMP book, which I'm sure you're aware of, is available on an Amazon Kindle format. You can go to Amazon, search for Preparedness Podcast, and find it. It will be out available in print very soon. I have actually a proof copy in my hand right now. It looks great. I'm really happy with the way it came out. The text was a little bit bigger than I expected, so I'm going back and I'm adjusting that and redoing it, but that should be available for sale very soon. I'm going to have copies of this at both the expos. And the other book, the Preparedness Capability Checklist, is nearing its editing cycle. I hope to have that back to me sometime the next week or two, hopefully no longer than that. And after that, it should not be much longer before it's available. Once I get it back, I have to make the changes, submit it, and we should be good to go. I'm hoping that by the beginning of next month at the latest, we should be able to see that out and available. I appreciate the patience that you've given. I have a lot of people emailing and asking about it, and I'm trying to get out as fast as possible, but I want to make sure it's a quality product. I don't want to put out something that, is just kind of mediocre. So it just takes a little extra time to get there, so please bear with me. We're gonna have that out really soon. In the meantime, go to the website and you can check out the Prepper News Watch that I'm putting out Monday through Friday. That's gaining in popularity. That's getting spread out all over the place, it seems. I get a lot of new links coming in all the time. And while you're on the site, you can sign up for the weekly preparedness tips. You'll find that on the sidebar on the left. You just sign up. I don't need anything other than your email, and you'll be getting tips right away. And they are article-length tips. They come out every week. I think there's some glitches. I think there's actually a string of 3 that comes out in the same week or even the same day, but just consider it a bonus, I guess. I've had a couple people email me saying that they signed up for the weekly tips but never received the first tip, and they've even let me know that they have confirmed the email that they get. So when you sign up, you're going to get a confirmation email. It's called a double opt-in, and that just makes sure that the system that's running the emails knows that you really have signed up for it and do want this service. But when I went in there, it was marked as unconfirmed. So if you're having an issue like that, just drop me an email, let me know, and I can manually unconfirm you and have those tips start coming out. Now, I know it's been a while since I did the last podcast, but it's not because I've been lounging on the beach, although I wish that were so. I've been working on the books, both the PCC and actually lately the EMP. I've been trying to get this one ready for print. I thought it would be a very easy conversion because, as you know, I have it out on Kindle, and I thought I would just take that PDF and roll it out to print, but turns out there's a little bit more to it. I have to write a cover, and I have to do the table of contents because it's not automatically generated and stuff like that. So it's been taking more and more of my time than I expected. So I apologize for not having the podcast come out on a regular basis, but once this is all over and done with, I'm hoping to get back to the regular schedule. So, wow, we have had quite a past couple of weeks lately. Today, April 15th, Tax Day, there was a bombing in the Boston Marathon. Just as people were crossing the finish line, a couple bombs went off, and then a third one went off at the JFK Library. The last report I received probably a couple hours ago said that they had found an additional 5 explosive devices. So I don't know at this time what the purpose was. I mean, what they were trying to accomplish, whether this was terrorism or, a disgruntled runner or something. I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say this is more likely a case of domestic terrorism or just domestic disgruntlement. But I'm sure we'll find out in the days ahead as the police uncover this more and more. As a prepper, it's a very sad reminder of one of the things that we need to keep in mind as far as safety is concerned. I mean, every time you get into a large, crowded event, a football stadium, a baseball game, a marathon, there is always a chance that somebody is going to vent their frustrations or try to sway political opinion and do something violent that's going to hurt or kill people in order to further their cause. It's a very sad state of affairs, but it is something that we need to keep in mind. And it's a choice that, quite honestly, every time I get into a large crowd, it's something I think about is, what are the odds that the event I'm at is going to see something like this happen? Now, luckily, it's still a very, very small number of events that are affected like this, but there may come a time when more events are affected, and we're going to have to constantly think about this. As I record this, my computer is continually getting emails and alerts and stuff because I have those apps running in the background. And while I was recording the last part there, I had a notice of an email come across from the RSOE Emergency and Disaster Information Service. And they basically have come out and said that the event category has been changed from explosion to terror attack. Now, I don't know if that is something just from RSOE or if that is an official from the United States government or Boston or whatever, if that's how they've classified it. However, I mean, it's an explosion. It's not a gas explosion. It's not a gas main. It's not a backfiring car or something. It truly was bombs, and they found many of them. So it definitely seems like a terrorist attack, but that distinction between calling an explosion and calling a terrorist attack gives you an insight of how they're looking at this event from a authority standpoint. Now, the other big thing that's been going on lately is North Korea. If you've been following the Prepper News Watch, and I really do suggest that you check it out every day, I am hitting all these different news sources and sticking them into the Prepper News Watch, anything that I feel is relevant to preppers, whether it's news about North Korea or new prepper techniques that I find, or even the H7N9 bird flu that is starting to ramp up in China. You're going to find a lot of good information there that not necessarily you can't find anywhere else, because all I'm doing is pointing to other sources, but at least it's a one concise area that you can get some prepper-related news stories at. Anyways, if you've been following them, this thing with North Korea isn't going away. We had a sort of quasi deadline that we thought might be April 10th based on some of the signals that we were getting from North Korea. They were saying that, all foreign emissaries should be out of South Korea by April 10th because North Korea could no longer guarantee their safety after that date. So we had thought that might be a go signal or a go date. There was a blog site for one of these prepper-related blog sites that came out and said that the satellite that North Korea had launched back, I think it was in December, with its unknown payload, would be directly over the United States, the center of the United States, on April 10th. That sounded pretty ominous to me. A friend of mine had looked up the path. He found a website that showed the path of this. It turns out that it actually is over the country several times a day. It sweeps basically from a south to north path, and I think it hits like East Coast, Central, and West Coast, and then it takes like 9 hours for it to go around the Earth, and it does it again. So it wasn't just April 10th. It's doing this on a regular basis. However, the unknown payload on that satellite, I think, is a concern. Now, I don't know if there's a way for the government to tell what's on there based on, neutron emissions or anything like that. And if I'm hoping that they know and it's not a threat. But if North Korea had this plan for a long time, they could have put a nuke into that satellite, and it's just now orbiting. It is orbiting at about 350 miles above the Earth's surface, which is right about perfect for an EMP detonation. Now, if you remember from the EMP podcast, or if you've gotten the book, it would take one nuclear detonation at about 300 miles above Nebraska or Kansas to basically completely blanket the United States with an EMP, or an electromagnetic pulse. And this pulse would take out the power grid and take out many electronics, including vehicles. Now, how many vehicles, we don't know, but the point is that we would be immediately shoved back a couple hundred years technology-wise, because all the electronics, or a good portion of electronics, would be dead. And certainly all the ones that we need for things like fuel deliveries, just-in-time inventory deliveries, food deliveries, things that we rely on every day would suddenly cease. We would not be able to get fuel from the refineries to the people who need it in other cities. We can't get the food from the farms to the people who need it, across the country. Anything that's stuck in port can't get out and delivered to wherever it was going to be delivered to, whether that's food or electronics or medical equipment or whatever was being shipped. So in other words, whatever you have available to you in your area is all that's you're going to have for a long time. And in many cases, this means whatever you have in your home, whatever fuel and food you have stored, that's it. That's all you're going to get, because there are no other shipments coming. So a lot of people are thinking that all this ballyhoo about North Korea is completely unfounded, because they don't have the missile technology to hit us on the mainland from North Korea. However, as I've already pointed out, they have this satellite up in space right now with its unknown payload. I'm hoping that some government agency, NASA or the military or whatever, has already looked at this satellite and knows what's on it and knows whether or not it's a threat. But I don't know that for sure. However, they can also still hit us by launching another missile. Now, no, the missile, as far as we know, they don't have the technology to actually get a warhead all the way over to the mainland. However, they don't have to. Let's say the satellite they launched is truly a weather satellite. Okay, that's not a threat. But they had a successful test of launching a ballistic object into orbit, and it's orbiting at about 350 miles above the Earth. Okay, so they know they can do this. They have the technology. They worked out the kinks. They've done it. Well, all of our anti-missile batteries and all of our military is floating in around Japan and off the island and north of there, because that's what they're expecting. Well, there was an article, and I don't remember where it was, but you'll find it on the Prepper News Watch, I think a couple days ago. Basically, it said, you know what? It would completely catch the military by surprise if North Korea was to launch a southbound missile and push this ballistic warhead up into the atmosphere, have it go across the South Pole, and when it basically floated in orbit above the United States, simply detonate it, and that would cause an EMP attack. I mean, we just explained how that works. So they can hit us, and they can hit us really hard, because if you've read 1 Second After, you know what we're talking about. And if you haven't, and you're interested in knowing what a post-EMP world would be like, I highly recommend that you read that book. That's 1 Second After by William Forstchen. So in the last podcast, I had basically talked about, the North Korea EMP scenario, and that was with the thought that they can get a ballistic missile close enough to the West Coast to detonate an EMP. Since then, we have now discovered that they've got this unknown payload that's floating around on a satellite now, and they could just launch a ballistic missile over or down across the South Pole and still accomplish their goal. In the last podcast, I had said, you need to make your plan. You need to get your communication plan together so that if there is an EMP attack and all communication is wiped out, you can't use the phone, you can't use text, can't use the internet or email or anything other than radio, and that would be ham radio, because that's the only thing that would really have the distance to communicate more than just a few miles. You need to know who's going to go where, who's going to do what, who's picking up the kids, where you're going to meet, how long you're going to wait. If you have a group of people or your family's going to come in and stuff, you need to plan this out. So, in other words, the EMP scenario is the ultimate what-if scenario. If you use that as a baseline for the disaster event, how do you cope with it? How do you handle it? What are you going to do? There is a lot that you can do with this. I think if you could make your preparedness plan deal with this sort of event, then you would be much better and much more capable of handling lesser events, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, even a quarantine situation where, let's say, a mile down the road there's a gas leak, or let's say the apartment complex next door to you has a psycho shooter and they're basically having people evacuate. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. How do you communicate? How do you know who's going to do where? How do you know where people are going to go? I think this makes for a good what-if scenario situation for you to take a look at. And one of the reasons it's a really good what-if scenario to go by is communications are down. Now, if you can call somebody and throughout a disaster, you know what they're, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go here, oh, I'm over here, this is what I'm seeing, this is where we'll meet up, and okay, you get the kids, and I'll get to this, and whatever. That is, I'm not going to say it's not stressful, but it's a lot easier to deal with, because you can talk to somebody else over long distance. If you want to see how bad it can be, go to the local field. When I was growing up, I lived next to a pipeline. It was a few doors down from a pipeline, and nothing could be built on this pipeline. And it was a great place to play as a kid, because it was nothing but an overgrown field. They would cut it like once a year, and other than that, it was a great place to go explore as a kid. But one of the things I remember from that was trying to talk to somebody who was more than a few dozen feet away. I distinctly remember trying to yell to my friend, who I'd like to say they were only 50 feet away, but I was a young kid and I don't really remember. But it really wasn't that far. I mean, I could see him very clearly, and we were trying to talk to each other he was going to his house, I was going to my house, and we were trying to talk to each other as we were walking. And it got to a point all we could really hear from each other was, what? Because we couldn't understand what the other person was saying. And if we had whistles and we had a little signal communication going on, we could have, done it by whistles, I suppose. But the human voice is only good for an extremely short distance. After that, you have to rely on some form of technology, even if it's banging on a piece of metal or a whistle. You need some other way to communicate, and whistles and banging on gongs or triangles or something would be a very minimal and crude form of communication, but it could serve as a warning bell or a dinner bell or something like that. But in this modern society where we have a lot of things going on, people work much farther from their homes than they did 100, 200 years ago. And so getting there, if your car is broken down, how do you let somebody know that you're going to be hours getting home? That's where your preparedness plan comes into play. And that's why I think if you look at it, an EMP scenario as your what if gameplay, then you can say, okay, well, I can't communicate, I can't talk to you, I can't text you, I can't let you know what I'm going to do. How do we go about accomplishing what we need to accomplish? And I think if you look at it from that standpoint and really think it through, I think you can increase your preparedness plan to a point where you're going to at least have some sort of comfort knowing that, okay, I can't contact my wife or husband, but I know they're going to get the kids. I know that if we can't stay at the house, we're going to meet up at this rally point, and so on. The next topic I want to cover are the rumors of false flag events. If you're not familiar with what a false flag is, it basically comes from the notion that back in a few hundred years ago, when we had naval vessels that would fly flags to identify who they were, sometimes you would have nefarious captains run up a false flag to pretend they were somebody else so that they could attack somebody or pretend to be a good guy or whatever. That's where the false flag comes from. And the way it's being used now is that a false flag event would be an event that would be perpetrated by a government or a higher than government entity in order to accomplish something else. For example, this whole bit about EMP and North Korea, they're making North Korea out to be the bad guy, that they would be the ones responsible. For example, if we got EMP'd right now, who are you going to be thinking did it? You're not going to be thinking the government. You're not going to be thinking England or the Saudis or Iraq or Iran or whatever. You're going to be thinking North Korea, because right now that is what all the fanfare is about. North Korea's got nukes. North Korea has EMP. North Korea is planning this, yada, yada. So if somebody made North Korea to be the bad guy, to be the fall guy for a specific event, and that event happened, then nobody would be looking at it from a standpoint of somebody did this to us on purpose that had nothing to do with North Korea. Now, why would they do this? Well, this gets into the global conspiracies and New World Order and a one world government stuff, and this is quite popular back in the 90s. And if I remember correctly, all these rumors of conspiracies turned out to be false because none of them actually panned out. The issue I have with false flag events is that it takes a lot of people agreeing to do something heinous against innocents. In this case, you're talking about somebody who has nuclear technology, and that isn't just a few people. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to go in on the plan to EMP an entire country. Additionally, if you EMP the United States, you're taking away a huge power base. I mean, everybody, let's just say, for example, the U.S. government was behind a planned EMP event. To what end? What would they gain? Right now, the Congress critters have royalty-like powers and benefits that they enjoy. They live a very soft, cushy life, passing judgment on the serfs, you and me. If they EMP'd the country, they would be in the same boat everybody else is. It's not something that I can easily accept as something that they would want to do. Even if they had a bunker with all this stuff supplied with food and water, and everybody would take care of them, they would lose that power base. They would lose the ability to control massive amounts of other people. And I don't see that happening. If you're talking somebody or an entity above the United States government, then you can't just take out the United States. You got to take out all these other first world countries in order to bring everybody to the same level of being, completely dependent on whatever you could hand out to them. And this would be, obviously after millions of people died, so we were more controllable because there were less of us. I'm having a hard time buying that. I just don't see. I don't see how that can really come to play, or even why. I don't understand it. Okay, you're probably asking me right now, Rob, why are you bringing this up? This is a prepper show. Well, as preppers, we're plugged into a lot of alternate media, a lot of alternate news, and we have to be very careful to validate what we trust, what sources we trust. Even the sources we trust, we have to always be skeptical because we don't want to trust something so much that we can be easily hoodwinked by a bad story. So I don't really see this as a real potential, or at least I hope not. But at the end of it all, I don't think it really matters to preppers why an event occurs, at least not at first. A survival situation still needs to be dealt with, whether it's due to a hurricane, earthquake, or a global conspiracy. You still need to protect your family. And I'm bringing it up so that we don't get sidetracked on the political aspect of it, because the political aspect is so convoluted and often way off track compared to what we need to be focusing on to make sure that our family is prepared to handle whatever may happen. Okay, well, honestly, there is one political aspect that I can think of that preppers should be active on, if nothing else, and that is the Second Amendment issues. The Second Amendment, or constitutional issues, are what allow us the freedom to prepare and keep our families safe. The Second Amendment is unlike all the other amendments because it allows you to maintain the coercive force to defend yourself, and that is critically important. And I think the only way we're going to be able to keep that is if we stay politically active to whatever level you're comfortable with. So as I wrap up this podcast, the things that we preppers are facing right now, as far as the big things that we should make sure we're prepared for or actively preparing for, are an EMP attack, as we've been talking about on this podcast and several other podcasts, an economic collapse, regardless of what that may mean. It could be hyperinflation, it could be deflation, it could be a monetary collapse, it could be a confiscation of your savings like Cyprus. We have pandemic flu. The H7N9 virus has about a 22% lethality rate right now. It isn't out of control, but it's something they're watching very carefully and trying to keep controlled. We have the erosion of gun freedoms, which I think is one of those political issues that preppers should be involved with. And we are seeing still an increase of natural disasters. We don't have one specific year that we have to worry about. This is a long-term thing. The Earth is a very slow mechanism. So when we have weather changes, climate changes, earthquake, and global changes like this, they usually occur over periods of years. And the last few years, we have seen increases in large-scale disasters, and I think that's likely to continue. So we need to be prepared for those as well. That's pretty much all I have. So until next time, enjoy life and stay safe.